The concept of this essay will be to explore the significance of a singular space as it navigates and situates itself through time, and how that space can be responsible for creating an identity of the self as it is reoccurring and living through one's memory. Specifically, how that space can then become a means for nostalgia, and how nostalgia adds in the formation of the individual. Barden says, "Only a union of space and time will preserve an independent reality. It is this independent reality through one's own frame of reference that one creates a unique and personal identity." Before Einstein, time and space were two separate entities. Unquestionably, Einstein's theory of special relativity denotes that space and time are merged together and seen as one entity, space-time. Barden notes that one classical realist proposal is that space-time is constituted by momentary space-time points, which involves the metrical relationship between those points as part of its identity. We can then translate this spatial-temporal relationship when considering one's formation of an identity. We need to take into account the influence a space can have. A particular space or location, like an ocean or beach, can become a space point of reference for an individual to refer back to at different points in time in their lives through their memory. A space, as ambiguous as a fixed landscape, can be then transcended through time and reappear as space points that directly relate and recall a memory of an important event or experience that has shaped or defined the self. The raw material of our experience consists of events. Events, by virtue of being directly accessible to our experience, have an unavoidably classical character. Space and space-time are not properties of the world we live in, but concepts we have invented to help us organize classical events. The organization of these classical events can then be argued as building blocks of the self, or a collection of specifically space-related memories. These classical events, regardless of the intention, are connected by a common space, and can therefore define one's character because of the impact on one's memory it can create on an individual, and how the distinct memory itself has significantly imprinted and shaped one's life. These memories then become moments in one's past that can be linked and recalled in the present, and when placed in the same or similar space again, this can potentially become a space point in the future. This is where one can look back into their life and travel from moment to moment within their past that share the same space, thereby now putting a value onto a once trivial place and making it a key location that is consequential to one's individual life. Thus, travel is then travel through space over time. Although it does not take time to get there, the destination is defined by its spatial, not its temporal location. This methodology of traveling spatially opposed to temporally allows for an individual to draw and intersect different moments over time in their life that is defined by a space. The medium of memory utilizes both time and space. Memory is defined as the faculty by which the mind stores and remembers information, but also something remembered from the past, a recollection. It is this working definition of how one's brain processes our day-to-day experiences and compartmentalizes and evaluates these moments into memories that can be causationally linked by time, place, emotion, effect, and so on. Within the complexity of our brain, the hippocampus has long been regarded as critical to memory as well as to supporting the brain's representation of space. It is here we can acknowledge the power of a space can hold in regards to memory, and how the association of a space can be connected to or signify defining moments in our life. Therefore, space can be accountable for how one shapes their character. Within the realm of neuroscience, there are single hippocampal neurons, time cells, and place cells, and these place cells encode locations in spatially structured experiences. These observations discern the role of the hippocampus in episodic memory and spatial mapping, and suggest that the fundamental function of the hippocampus is to establish spatial temporal frameworks for organizing memories. So abstractly, as well as scientifically, there is a causal link between time and space and how it signifies certain configurations within our brain to form vital personal memories. Finally, a synthesis of emerging knowledge about time cells and place cells suggests that the same population of hippocampal neurons encodes both the spatial and temporal regularities of experience, creating a framework that organizes the spatial temporal context of experience and puts each event into its time and place. And it is within this framework that the individual can then navigate within their memories and input significance onto a particular place. Memories are not only a compilation that formulate each unique individual, in that we, as humans, define the self based on our past experiences, it also allows us to create a relation between us and our world and others so that we feel we belong and the consequences that belonging has for the self. That the temporal location of belonging, either in the past or the present, has consequences for how time is experienced and how memory is utilized in creating a sense of belonging. Due to the multiple significations in creating a sense of belonging for the self, this includes finding solace within a space that one has put implicit meaning onto. Belonging is here defined as a sense of ease a person can have with themselves and with their surroundings. This belonging created through a memory to a time or space can be enlightened and comforted or detrimental in nature, dependent on the implication it has on one's life in the present. For instance, if one forms a belonging to a space, like an ocean, the effects of that bond created can go either way when triggered by one's own memory. This can be viewed in various ways. For example, a space can be representative of a traumatic experience or a positive one, and the recollection of that space can evoke the emotion in accordance with the reception and lasting imprint of that experience. Another approach is that if the space is recalled, like of an ocean, is reminiscing of joyful memories from different moments in time in one's life. The absence or longing to return to that space can onset the feeling of nostalgia. It is at this moment that this determined significance of space in memory that induces nostalgia within a person. There are many working definitions to what nostalgia is and how we as individuals are impacted by it. Nostalgia, in the past, was considered a mental illness when first discovered, yet now, while the implications can still be detrimental to one's mental health, it is so much revered in the capacity it holds for the connections it makes to memory and space-time. Nostalgia is a sentimental longing or wistful affection for a period in the past, or the conception of nostalgia as a bittersweet emotion that has the capacity to be positive or negative for the individual. Nostalgia can muster a sense of meaning, and that nostalgia can facilitate the continuity of identity. Nostalgia is an intense emotion that is grounded in a specific place and time that is linked to past experiences, then recollected through memory that can shape both a personal and collective identity. Arguably, nostalgia can be destructive or constructive in manner. The reason that nostalgia is so important when considering time, place, and memory is how it combines all three and is impactful in the creation of the self and can form that sense of belonging or purpose, yet the outcomes vary in consequence. The article chooses to identify as a key function of nostalgia its facilitating continuity between past and present selves, as well as facilitating use of positive perceptions about the past to bolster a sense of continuity and meaning in one's life. We see that nostalgic reminders of past events situate the self within a particular place and time. The depth of nostalgia is noteworthy of consideration because it assumes certain indications on an individual's relation to time and space. The nostalgic experience is a complex phenomenon that is both temporal and spatial, as well as cultural, social, and mnemonic. Nostalgia crosses from the private to the social, the individual to the collective, situated through time in the past, present, and future, the psychological and the fantastical. Its limitations are boundless for its implications on the self. While nostalgia is typically regarded as a concept related to time, it more adheres to the concept of space. For when one is nostalgic, their mind immediately situates them in a past place and space that initiates those feelings of longing. While yes, you can be nostalgic for a certain time or era, it is primarily dominated by the place the event was located in at this time. For example, when one is nostalgic of their childhood, it is usually linked to their childhood home, school, or place of upbringing, not necessarily the time itself. Therefore, space is of utmost importance. This method of nostalgia is called place nostalgia. Though perhaps painful in that it brings to the forefront what has been lost, it also brings with it the pleasure of remembering a past sense of belonging. This means that belonging is essential to who we are as individuals and how we command ourselves as human beings. So, while memory of a significant space and time construct the self and sense of belonging, the translation of these factors to nostalgia can dictate a lot about the temporal self. Nostalgia has been found to act as a defense mechanism in the face of change because it can help maintain a stable identity by providing continuity. For some individuals, this holding on to a sense of the past through nostalgia is their only means of defining themselves and reverting back to particular times and places that are of comfort to the individuals. Additionally, this precedent put onto a location can cause temporal displacement. That means that a sense of belonging to a place is not anchored in the places as it is now, but in memories of the place as it was in the past. For some, visits to this place can act to trigger such happy memories and bring their old sense of belonging to the surface. Temporal displacement can alternatively heighten that displacement if one can't find a commonality to how they remember it in the past. For instance, visiting an old childhood neighborhood that is no longer recognizable due to change can deeply impact the individual's sense of self, as the place they remember is no longer the same and has altered their knowledge and view of themselves in the world. Lastly, the term place meaning, the environment one inhabits, remains as a testament to one's life. The selective and repeated mental reconstruction and maintenance of these places is consciousness, a habit of the mind, proves a sense of reinforcement of the self. Developing meaning through place is not a passive process. Most individuals play an active role in creating the places of their lives. Therefore, we can note that without the acknowledgement to a space and location, the identity of the self and belonging can be lost among one another. There would be no point of reference for an individual to refer to. Therefore, we can note that without the acknowledgement to a space and location, the identity of the self and belonging can be lost among one another. There would be no point of reference for an individual to refer back to. For example, the inability to tie a memory to a location or landscape, such as a beach, can make it difficult to recollect the memory at all, and there is nowhere to situate it within one's mind and memory. In conclusion, we can acknowledge the crucial importance of a singular space and the foundation it holds when shaping one's own identity. A space, like one's childhood home, school, summer vacation, destination, childhood park, playing field, workplace, beach, etc., can become an establishing place for one's identity due to how the experience and the events that took place in these locations shaped and defined the self. Furthermore, the weight it carries when in relation to memory, and specifically the implications it can have in regards to becoming nostalgic. Therefore, a space can be a grounding image within one's memory over the span of one's life that can be compiled and categorized to be representative of an emotion or a duration of time or a series of events and so forth, that these memories then assign value and significance to a particular space.